So, this is going to be a good time for me to talk a little bit about winding the bobbin. I'm going to start the machine because I know it works. And first off, I'd like to point out what people will do when the machine doesn't work. Okay. The first thing they do is they go buy a new foot control. It's got to be the foot control. Can't be anything else. Got to be this. Okay. They plug it in. They turn the machine on. Put their original foot control in. Step on it. Nothing happens. So let's replace the foot control. Unfortunately, there are no more genuine foot controls. This control is a Chinese copy. What Chinese have done is they've mastered making things look good. I think that's where it ends, because most of this stuff doesn't work. So, what you want to look for, first of all, on a Pfaff sewing machine, German Pfaff sewing machine, which is anything produced up until 1999. You want to maintain the original parts as much as possible. This is my shop control for this series, and the difference is, you can see these are pretty similar parts. Now, you have to understand this has been through a lot. So it's missing a little rubber thing, a little caps, and cosmetic stuff. This is an original control because it says Pfaff right on here. It's got the ID, the electrical information, the type, made in Western Germany. So this is a genuine foot control. This is a Chinese copy. Looks pretty close. When you get inside, it's awful. So, you want to keep this. If it doesn't work, we may be able to repair it. The chances are, if your symptom is you turn the machine on, here we go with the battery. I'm going to ignore that, so we're going to push anything. If the symptom that you're having, and this is quite common on the machines, as we talked about earlier, the motor brushes are woefully inadequate for this machine. So what will happen is you'll plug the machine in. This is working. And you'll step on the pedal and it won't go. So while you're stepping on the pedal, you notice if you turn the hand wheel, it goes a while. Runs normal. At some point, it just stops again. Doesn't go. You push on the pedal, nothing happens. You turn the wheel, it goes again a while. And you do that until now it doesn't work at all. And this is how you come up with the assumption that it's got to be the foot control. So once you've replaced the control, gone out and spent way too much money for this, you find that you got the same problem. And the real problem is motor brushes are worn. In most cases, 99%. So, now you got a expensive, poorly made control. You actually have an extra because the original one probably is still good. And your motor brushes are worn down. So you're going to have to find somebody that can do that. And hopefully it comes here, because typically if it goes somewhere else, you're going to end up with yard art. So let's start about the bobbin winding. Actually, I think I would like to talk a little bit about this arrangement. These machines are now used pretty extensively by hobbyists, whether it's the sail makers, the kite makers, the doll makers, the quilt makers, the homemakers, or whatever making. Okay, so they discovered, I can buy this for cheaper than the volume of these little spools. So I spend $8 for this, or I spend $2 for this. So let's use this. Okay. Believe it or not, I see them like this. And stuff glued on, drilled in, you name it. people can really make a mess. You don't do this. This is an industrial cone spool. This was designed to work with an industrial thread stand. The shape of the cone, very nice, voila. Also pronounced voila for French people. Come to think of it, some of these Canadians are French. Yikes. Okay, so I'm going to have to watch my French if I knew how to speak French. Okay, so if you got to use this, and there's nothing wrong with using this thread, this spool, but you got to do it correctly. Here's what I suggest. Take the cover off, like we talked about before. You remove the cover. You set this behind the machine like so. And here you go. There, threaded. Now, I want to wind the bobbin. What we're going to do is we're going to use new bobbins, genuine Pfaff bobbins, written on there, Pfaff. We don't use metal bobbins in these machines because they have bobbin monitors. The way a bobbin monitor works is there's a receiver and a transmitter down in here. The little eye there, and then there's a receiver in the back. These two components are looking at each other. And if they can see each other, that's because there's no thread on the bobbin. So the light comes on, it says you're running out of thread. If you use a metal bobbin, metal Pfaff bobbin, which was used on the 1200 series machines, these two components can't see each other ever because it's metal. Can't see through the metal. So your bobbin monitor, which is something you paid for, now doesn't work. Metal bobbins are made of three pieces, a hub and two sides. Most metal bobbins. These will actually, if you overwind or have too much tension on a thread, they'll actually pop the sides off the hub. So then you have a no good bobbin. You're going to use plastic bobbins for another reason, because they're less weight. Less weight means less tension, or there's a difference in the tension. So let's start winding. Let me show you how I wind, and I'm going to use my foot control. Okay, so we've decided we're going to wind the bobbin. I'm going to take this thread off, that demonstration. On this machine, your bobbin winder tensioning device is this. You swing it out, you hook it in your thread guide. Now I can feel some resistance. I don't really want that. Better. Okay. Now, on this machine I'm going under this and around that guide. I don't particularly like this tensioning device. So, but I still want a nicely wound bobbin. So the way I do it is I put the thread up through the bobbin. There's a hole. Show you that again. So you have the thread. You find the hole. The hole is actually on both sides, either side, and it's a square hole. And it's so that you can set the bobbin down on the pin. That allows the bobbin winder to drive the bobbin, so it won't slip. On this, I'm going to put the thread up through that square hole. I'm going to have it coming up on the top. And now I'm going to hold the thread very tightly toward the center of the winder. Okay, now, once I've got the bobbin turning, I like to hold the thread as it comes off the spool and add a little bit more tension. This bobbin winder is going to need some work because it's slipping. But in the end, you want a evenly wound bobbin with the right amount of tension. Take this cover off and show you this is the spring right here. The thread has to go underneath that. When this is on, it's very difficult to see this. If you don't get the thread under that and around, you won't have any tension on the thread. If you don't have any tension on the thread, you'll end up with a bobbin that looks like a bird's nest. That's unusable. You can't sew with that. Now this is an example of a poorly wound bobbin. You see it's not tight, it's not defined. This is a potential problem for your stitch quality. Make sure your bobbins are wound with a good tension and they're even. This is what happens if you don't have a properly wound bobbin. The thread is so loose in there it just gets knotted. And there, that's the end of it. That's the difference between the newer style 1400 series bobbin winder tensioners and the older style. They work about the same, but I always like to add a little bit of squeeze on the thread as it's coming off the spool when I'm winding the bobbin. I can control the tension that way and I'm not relying on all this hardware. And I always end up with very well wound bobbins. So that eliminates a lot of potential problems.